The frustration surrounding the matchup against the Golden State Valkyries had nothing to do with the opposing defense. Caitlin Clark was completely furious at the fabricated narrative that had been pushed all week regarding her injury. Every transcendent athlete eventually reaches a breaking point when they realize they are fighting an exhausting war from every direction, and the day before tip-off, Clark finally addressed it head-on. Sitting at the press conference podium, she looked directly into the cameras and dismantled the false reporting by correcting the exact injury timeline that had been repeatedly misrepresented. No drama, no excuses, just the facts.
And I actually went back and looked, because of all these narratives that are going crazy online, about when I told my mom I wasn't going to play the game. 4:47, you guys found out at 5:20. So one of the most important people in my life found out 40 minutes before you guys.
Caitlin Clark made it crystal clear that the idea of an injury reporting cover-up was completely absurd, pointing to the brutally tight timeline with visible frustration during what may have been her angriest press conference of the entire season. Then, just one night later, she transformed that fury into a cinematic and ruthless performance in the Indiana Fever's 90-82 victory over the Golden State Valkyries, delivering one of the most explosive and weaponized games of her professional career. The performance was more than just a statistical masterpiece. It was a psychological statement aimed directly at the media, the league, and every narrative attempting to diminish her impact. From surviving relentless physical contact to erupting after a double technical that seemed to awaken an entirely different level of aggression, Clark controlled the game like a superstar operating at full emotional intensity. While the box score tells part of the story, the actual game unfolded like a chaotic street fight, and even the opposing head coach ultimately admitted the terrifying reality that Clark, at her best, looks completely unstoppable.
They kind of did everything they could to stop Caitlin. And you got to give Nakase credit, because she is the guard stopper. That's her thing. That's her thing. She's able to stop guards. And she did everything to try to stop Caitlin. It didn't work.
The first half turned into a brutal physical battle as the Golden State Valkyries arrived in Indianapolis with a defensive game plan specifically engineered by head coach Natalie Nakase to neutralize Caitlin Clark. Nakase, widely respected as one of the sharpest defensive minds in the WNBA, had clearly dissected every detail of Clark's game, from the deadly left step back and deep logo range to the hesitation move that creates space for her pull-up jumper. The Valkyries responded by throwing constant pressure and relentless physicality at Clark on every possession, using multiple defenders to disrupt her rhythm and deny her comfortable catches. For much of the first two quarters, the strategy worked, slowing the timing of Indiana's offense and making Clark uncomfortable. But if Golden State believed that level of pressure and intimidation would make Clark back down, they completely misunderstood the mentality and competitive fire that defines her game.
Before we get to the Gabby Williams, what?
Right before the break, we got a little John going on. Caitlin says, hey,
look,
you me, Hayes, you
Kelly,
me.
look at Caitlin blowing her kisses. Caitlin blew her kisses, bro. Look. So no, it was Janelle Sloan and Caitlin Clark. Referees had to step in. Look at Caitlin, guys.
At the absolute climax of the first half, the tension finally detonated. Caitlin Clark put her head down, attacked the rim with violent force, and aggressively swiped at a loose ball tangled in the arms of Valkyries forward Janelle Sloan, instantly igniting a fiery confrontation as Sloan stepped directly into Clark's face, and the two began jawing relentlessly while both benches slowly crept toward the hardwood. Veronica Burton had to physically separate the two before officials issued double technical fouls, sending both teams into halftime with the entire arena drowning in tension and the feeling that the game was on the verge of exploding. But what the mainstream media completely missed was the psychological impact that moment had on the second half, because Clark is not the type of generational competitor who starts meaningless fights or gets rattled by physicality. She absorbs the contact, internalizes the disrespect, and weaponizes it. Combined with the exhausting week of injury rumors, toxic media scrutiny, and nonstop criticism, that altercation created the perfect storm of competitive fury, because you do not break a transcendent basketball genius with cheap shots and hostility. you awaken something far more dangerous.
It's damn near altering the game, bro. It's just damn near altering the game. Let me pull this up real quick. Let me pull the game cast back up real quick. So it's another timeout. So the Fever call a full time. Why would Stephanie White call a timeout? I don't know what happened. I got to see what happened.
Caitlin Clark came out of the locker room in the third quarter and completely embraced the moment, bringing the ball up the court before casually pulling up from 33 feet at the logo with the game tied at 48. After a week filled with criticism, controversy, and nonstop media narratives, she buried the deep three in front of a stunned home crowd and instantly changed the energy inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But it was not just the shot that electrified the arena. It was what came next. Clark turned directly toward veteran guard Tiffany Hayes, stepped into the competitive fire, and exchanged fearless trash talk like two elite competitors battling in a game that truly mattered. The crowd erupted as Clark unleashed all the frustration from the previous week into one cold-blooded sequence, using every ounce of emotion to dismantle the Valkyries' defensive pressure. That moment, the logo 3, the confidence, the swagger, and the fearless response, captured exactly who Caitlin Clark really is, a superstar who thrives under pressure, answers criticism with greatness, and completely takes over when the spotlight burns brightest.
Boston have Kelsey assist. Caitlin Clark makes 2 free throws. Tip Hayes hits a 3. Sophie Cunningham makes a free throw. Caitlin hits a big 3 to tie it up from like 30. From 30. They go hit a 3. Hines Allen's okay. And then suddenly it's like Caitlin makes a real tough layup and 1. She makes a super tough and 1 to give the Fever the lead for the first time. Caitlin misses a circus shot, then hits Sophie.
Lexi Hull doing it all on that defensive possession. Clark. Oh! From another.
Once Caitlin Clark drilled that impossible logo 3, coach Natalie Nakase was forced to abandon her entire defensive scheme, and the moment the defense shifted, the passing lanes exploded open as Clark began carving up the floor with effortless transition assists. Clark finished with a masterful performance of 22 points, 9 efficient assists, for 3-pointers on 9 attempts, and 32 grueling minutes of complete offensive control as the defensive blueprint designed to stop her completely collapsed in the second half. Her ruthless efficiency transformed the entire rhythm of the Indiana Fever offense, unlocking the best version of Aaliyah Boston, who dominated the paint with 20 points and 16 rebounds on efficient shooting. When Clark pushes the pace, orchestrates the transition game, and feeds Boston in stride, the Fever suddenly look less like a rebuilding team and far more like a legitimate championship threat, a reality even the opposing coach was forced to acknowledge after the final buzzer.
16 rebounds with 24 seconds left in this one. Caitlin Clark don't look like she's going to get a double-double, but you never know. You just never know. But they out fouling, so I doubt she get it. 22, 9 and 2. 22, 9 and 2. Solid numbers, bro. Caitlin Clark been averaging 20 points.
After the 90-82 loss, Natalie Nakase openly admitted that Caitlin Clark made adjustments that completely shattered the defensive game plan, explaining that while her team prepared for Clark's signature step-back shots and deep logo 3s, they could not stop her ability to read the floor in real time, identify tiny weaknesses in the defense, and exploit them with pinpoint passing and elite decision-making. Nakase, known as one of the brightest basketball minds in the WNBA with experience alongside the Golden State Warriors, praised Clark's basketball IQ and ability to surgically dismantle defensive schemes under pressure. With the Indiana Fever improving to 4-2, Clark fully healthy, and Aaliyah Boston delivering her best performance of the season, the Fever's momentum is rapidly building, fueled by a version of Clark that is aggressive, confident, emotional, and capable of taking over games with scoring, playmaking, leadership, and relentless competitive energy.